Hey, today we're going to be having a pretty in-depth interview with Rogue Preparedness, formerly known as Armed Rogue. We're going to find out what she did when she was younger, the most dangerous situation she's ever been in, and what got her into prepping. So let's jump right into it. So Morgan, before we get started with the questions, I want to really tell you how much I enjoy your channel. Your channel is one of the only channels that I will watch if I see a video is about a gear review. Now, your channel is not just gear reviews. Your channel really encompasses everything about prepping. But for the once in a while gear review that you will do, I can see that you are honestly testing it out to see if it would be worth for somebody else to purchase it. Plus, you usually review something that's pretty reasonably priced. And for anybody that's viewing this video, she also has an excellent website called roguepreparedness.com, and I will be putting a link to her website down in the description box of this video. So make sure you check that out along with her YouTube channel. So Morgan, in other interviews, you have heard me talk about where Y2K was what got me thinking about prepping, and then being dispatched on a full-on riot over tennis shoes was what actually got me starting into prepping. So why don't you share with the rest of us is what made you start getting into being prepared? Was there an event that happened, or did you just graduate into it? Share with us what got you started into prepping.
Hi EP, thank you so much for having me on your channel. I really appreciate it. I love your channel. I've loved it like ever since it came out. I saw it and I was like, now this is someone who knows what they're talking about. You know, you have the experience, you have the background, you have the knowledge, and plus you're always learning. That's what I love about channels. You know, I really like watching channels in which they're just constantly learning. You know, they're not just preaching, you know, information, but they're saying, hey, let's learn this together or whatever, you know, and hey, this was a fail, oh well, let's, you know, it happens, you know, stuff like that. And I like your channel for that. To answer your question, what got me started in prepping, it seems kind of silly, but this was many years ago. Many years ago, there was a blackout, and you know, at the time, you know, we all had cell phones. I think at the time I had a BlackBerry. And so we all had cell phones, right? And my cell phone was about to die right during this blackout, and I was like, oh boy, what am I gonna do? I started freaking out, you know, because we're all just so connected to our cell phones. Ever since cell phones came out, it's almost like we're just, you know, it's at our hip, you know. But I like cell phones, but at the same time, you know, it sucks that we have this device constantly attached to us. But anyway, and so I started wondering, well, how do I charge my cell phone without electricity? And that's kind of what got me thinking and kind of got me started into it. And I started looking up alternative ways, and then I found the battery banks. And then, you know, I got a little involved from there. You know, I didn't do a bag or anything like that. I started to just kind of get a little interested in it. And then after that, when I met my husband, we both really got into prepping after that. You know, we were both really into a lot of the outdoors and firearms, you know, and stuff like that. I've kind of always been a pseudo prepper, you know. I've always been into, you know, my mom dehydrating, canning, and stuff like that. You know, always being prepared for road trips, things like that, you know. So I think some of us are preppers, you know, in our own little right. But I became really hardcore when I met my husband many years ago. We've been together a long time.
So why don't you now share a little bit with us about your background? What has shaped you into the person that you are today? And what did you do when you were younger before you got your channel and everything like that?
Thank you so much for the website shout out, by the way. I really appreciate that. So what's shaped my worldview? That's a really tough question. I don't want to ramble on too much about this. Anybody who knows me knows I kind of ramble sometimes. So my childhood was really based around the outdoors. I mean, I was outside all the time using my imagination. We had a forest in our backyard. You know, I'd always be back there chasing deer and, you know, pretending I was this, that, and the other with my friends. I was just always into the outdoors. You know, my dad would take me and my brother camping every single summer. But really that was the extent. Like our family, we never took family hiking trips. We never took like really serious family outdoor vacations or anything. We went to the beach a lot because I lived in Oregon. I grew up in Oregon, and the beach was like an hour and a half away. Oregon coast, beautiful, right? So we were always at the beach too, but I was never into firearms. I was never fishing, never hunting, nothing, none of that stuff. I really only got into that stuff really hardcore in my late 20s. Mid-20s, mid to late 20s, I got into that stuff. I had shot a firearm in my early 20s, but I didn't really get like super into it. A ex-boyfriend had taught me how to shoot. And it was really cool. I thought it was great. I had nothing against guns, nothing. I liked it a lot. And then I got into it. But, I think my mom had a big influence on how I saw the world. My mom has a very strong personality. And because of that, I have a very strong, outgoing, blunt personality, just like her. Her views were really influential on me. She was my mom. And then I found out later in life that her views were not exactly perfect. I'm not going to say right or wrong because everybody has their views, and I'm not going to tell you whether your views are right or wrong. But I think that, my views definitely have changed a lot. I think it's totally natural, and everybody's views should change throughout their life. They shouldn't be, dead set on, one thing just because they were indoctrined, when they were a child or something. I think that growth is good, change is good. And, if somebody presents something better, then you should be open to changing your mind. So, that's definitely what's been happening to me as an adult.
So I've never been one of those types of preppers that have fixated on one thing that I think will cause SHTF. I try to make my preparedness as broad as possible, so I'm as prepared as possible. Now, I know that none of us knows what will cause SHTF. I know that we can only develop theories on it. But what I would like to know, and what I'd like for you to share with us, is what are your major concerns? What's some of the things that you think have the highest probability of causing SHTF?
Like you said, we can only, theorize, and we can only say, well, I think this might happen because of this. There's so much going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of stuff that is not even in the mainstream media. It's just kind of out there, but it's not really getting out there to the public. I'm not sure that I think a pandemic is probable. Do I think that that's going to be the next thing that is going to be the big, apocalyptic thing? I don't think so. I think we should still prep for it because illness is still, rampant. Things are coming back because people aren't vaccinating. Things are happening that, we really need to be prepared for when it comes to some sort of pandemic. And we also need to understand the difference between epidemic and pandemic. An epidemic is just centered in like an area, like say it was just centered in San Antonio or something. And then a pandemic would be, more widespread. So we need to understand the difference between those two things too. There have been lots of epidemics lately, but it has not turned into a pandemic, luckily, because it's either been caught or whatever, and that's another lesson to learn too. If you feel sick, you need to get the proper treatment, instead of just continuing to spread it around to people. Okay, anyway, like I said, I can ramble. I think that the most likely thing to happen would be an attack on our grid. Our grid is very susceptible. It is very, unfortunately, very easy to crack. And so I think that the most likely would be an attack on our grid, which could be very short term, which could be long term, who knows? But I think that would be probably the thing that we would see next. After that, I think it would have to be an economic collapse, but there would have to be a lot of things dominoing effect of the economic collapse. And we can actually already see a slight economic collapse happening right now, because of the extreme debt that we're in and, just everything that's happening.
So it usually surprises people when they find out that I am a practicing Orthodox Quaker because I'm a firearms instructor and being a police officer and stuff like that. So why don't you share with us what's something that would surprise people about you?
I think people would be surprised to know that I have a side business as a voice actress, and I also am a writer. I'm writing several books, fiction and nonfiction. I think those would be the top two things that people would be surprised about. I don't do, I actually should do more voiceover videos. Also, something else that people might be surprised about is that I'm really into filmmaking. Might be surprised about it because I don't do any like actual filmmaking, really anything on here, but I am planning on having a series which is going to be very reminiscent of the Bizza Rizza Jizza audio series and a mix between like Praxis Preppers series, but very different. So I'm planning that after my 365 series, which I have going on right now.
So several years ago, unknown persons took 2 or 3 wild shots at me. They never hit me. Of course, obviously I'm still here to do this video interview. We never found out who they were or anything like that, but I would like for you to share with us what's been the most dangerous situation you've ever been in.
I have never been shot at like you, but I have been in a few pretty scary scenarios. I would say probably the scariest scenario I was in was when I was with one of my ex-boyfriends, and he and I were driving in the Oregon country, and we were for some reason like driving into random we were stupid teenagers, and we were driving into random like roadways, and one of these roadways went to a house, and all of a sudden there was this bright light we could see in the distance. Like we couldn't tell it was a house, like we could kind of see something. All of a sudden this bright light got closer and closer, and we just kept staring at it. We were like, is that somebody walking towards us with a really bright light? And like we just kind of saw the light going like this, and then all of a sudden he got a little closer, and we could see that he had like a fire, like a long rifle, shotgun, something like that. It was a long gun, and we were like, oh my god! We was just like reverse back, and we got the heck out of there. Like we had no idea, what we were doing. Again, we were stupid teenagers, but yeah, that was probably the scariest thing that I've ever been through. Thank you, EP, so much for having me on for this interview, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate you, and I have a lot of exciting stuff coming to the channel. I am currently, at the time of making this interview, I'm 15 weeks pregnant, so while some things will slow down, there's still a lot of things happening, hunting, camping, I'm going to be trying to get together with other channels, things like that, and prepping with a newborn and a toddler, yay! And then after this 365 series, I have a lot planned, and plus a lot of things planned for my website. I just have a lot going on, so I just really appreciate everyone's support and viewership and all that. Thank you all so much for watching, and again, thank you all so much to EP for this interview.
Folks, I really hope that you enjoyed this interview with Rogue Preparedness. Just remember, a link to her really kick-butt website will be in the description box below, and a link to her YouTube channel should be appearing in the upper right-hand corner of the screen just about now. If you haven't already subscribed to her channel, make sure you do so. You're really missing out if you don't. Anyways, folks, if you made it this far, hey, thank you very much for watching, and I pray that you have a good night.